Good evening, viewers. I welcome you all to this webinar by GSTN. Uh, a warm welcome to everyone who has joined us today. And today's topic for the webinar is audit and its compliance by the taxpayers. So before we start today's webinar, I would like to inform you that my colleague Shri Rafi Ahmed Kidwai is also joined with us on YouTube. And please post your queries in the chat box. We will try and answer all your queries during the course of webinar. So please feel free to post any queries that you may have regarding today's session. I would also like to inform you that we have already done this webinar in different languages. We have already done it in Tamil and Hindi. So if English is your choice of language, you can continue with us. We will also be doing shortly this webinar in Marathi. So without much ado, let's start today's session. Now, the agenda for today's webinar is, I'll just give you a definition, the basic definition of what is audit process. A lot of you may be already aware of what is audit, but then for those who don't know, we'll just explain it a bit in detail. After that, we will talk about what are the important points which should be kept by the taxpayers in mind in case they are selected for audit by GST department. And then how can they comply with the process of audit on the portal. So these are the 3 points for today's discussion. And let's start with what is audit process. So if we have to simply define audit, it is verification of the original records, returns, and other documents of the taxpayers. Now this information which is provided by the taxpayer is correlated with the information already available with the department and between the different records. And the basic idea behind doing the audit is that their compliance with the provisions of Act and rules under GST law is to be ascertained. Now, if you receive a notice for audit, you will be required to provide your books of accounts and records to the audit team. So this in a nutshell is audit process which may a taxpayer may have to undergo in case they're selected for audit. Now, in case it so happens that you received a notice for audit, what are the important information that you need to keep in mind so that you can undergo it successfully. Now it is important to note that your original records can be verified by the audit team at your business premises. Also, they can also choose to do the audit in their own office. So it depends on the audit team. That is one. Now all your business premises will actually need to be provided to the audit team in case they choose to do it at your premises. The audit process will also include all your additional places of business. Now, for the convenience of taxpayers, so that they don't feel any kind of hassle, the audit party will give at least 15 days working days notice in advance to the taxpayer that they have been selected for audit and that they will be required to undergo audit of their records. Now, generally, once the audit process has started, it takes the team or the time given to that audit team is generally 3 months from the date of commencement. But there can be situations when it needs to be extended if the documents are voluminous or if there is some additional information that they're seeking in the middle of audit. So it can be further extended by the audit team by 6 months. So effectively, the 3 months period can go up to 9 months. But the moment audit process is completed, the report will be made available to the taxpayers on their dashboard within 30 days of conclusion of the audit process. Now, what is the period for which you may need to undergo audit? Now, on the portal, audit can be done for part of the year, it can be done for the complete financial year, or it can even be done for multiple financial years in one go. Generally, audit team will ask you for records which can go back up to previous 5 years. So that is one important part. Now, in case you feel there is a need for adjournment, there is one proceeding that is basically the initial notice for audit in form ADT 01, against which you can seek adjournment. So that option is given, and that can happen in case you are not ready with the documents, or if you're traveling abroad, or if you have some kind of emergency at home and you're not able to provide the documents within the required period, which is 15 working days. You can actually seek adjournment, which will be given by the tax officer depending on the merits of your request. Now, the process of the audit itself will include two things. One is notices, and finally the report. However, if you do not comply with the notice, you can also be summoned by the audit officers. And at the end of the process, once the report has been finalized and made available on your dashboard, in case you do not discharge your liabilities, then you are liable to be issued with show cause notice by the department. So this slide gives you the complete process in a nutshell in one single slide. So let us see what are the notices and what are the other documents or the communications that you may receive during the course of audit. One is the notice for conducting audit under section 65(3). Now we are talking of general audit here. There is also a provision for special audit that is not being covered in today's webinar. The prescribed form for this is ADT01. Now, as I already informed you, this will be issued to you 15 working days in advance to the proposed date of audit. Now, once you have been issued with the notice and you have provided the requisite documents to the department can also issue another notice to you seeking additional information. So we call this notice calling additional information. Then you will mandatorily necessarily be issued with a notice for discrepancy under Rule 1014. So whatever discrepancies are noticed by the audit team during the course of audit, they will be communicated to you in form of a notice to which you can reply. You can, while giving your reply, you also have a provision to upload supporting documents. And there is a provision for also issuing an additional notice by the audit team for discrepancy under Rule 1014. Finally, at the end of this process, an audit report is finalized and issued in form GST ADT02. Now, this is communicating the findings of the audit under section 65(6) to the taxpayer. It is made available on your dashboard. We already discussed about the summons. In case you do not respond to any of the notices, then you can be summoned by the tax officers, by the audit officers in this case. And if you do not comply with the show cause notice, with the audit report, then you can also be issued with a show cause notice under section 73 or 74 of the GST. And the demand can be created in form GST DRC 01. Now, there was a provision for adjournment available to the taxpayers, which is request for adjournment of audit. Now, if you're not ready with the documents, you seek some more time, you can actually make a request, but this request is only against the initial notice in form ADT01. So that is the only opportunity for the taxpayer to seek adjournment. Now, each notice can be followed up by at least or up to 3 reminders. So up to 3 reminders can be issued for any notice which has not been complied with. Now, what happens when an audit officer issues any kind of communication to you in form of a notice or a report? The moment a notice or a report is sent or issued by the audit team, this intimation will be received by you on your registered email ID and mobile number. In this case, the email ID and the mobile number is of the primary authorized signatory. So this intimation is received on the mobile as well as your email. It is also provided on your dashboard where you can log in and then view it, download it, and reply it. So the process is standard. You log on, navigate to services, go to user services. Now under the tab view additional notices and orders, you will be able to see all these notices and the report. So once you have filed your reply or a counter reply, every time you take any action against a particular notice, your case ID gets updated. So in case you have filed a reply, the case ID will be updated as reply filed. You will also get an acknowledgement on SMS and email that your reply has been received. So an acknowledgement is also sent additionally, and then you can also view it on the dashboard. Now, important thing to remember here is that there is no limit on the number of replies or counter replies that you can file against a single notice, provided it is within the date prescribed by the department for receiving the reply. We already discussed this, that you can be sent up to 3 reminders if you do not respond to the previously issued reminder. However, any subsequent reminder will be sent to you only after the date of first reminder is over and you have not replied to it. Now, there are some communications to which you can reply to, where you are required to rather reply to. One is for a notice for conducting audit under section 65(3). Then you can also reply to the summons. You are required to reply to the notice calling additional information, the notice of discrepancy under rule 1014, any additional notice under this rule, and the audit report. Now let's see, we have already seen the important points related to audit which you should be aware of. Now let us see how do you comply with the audit process on the portal. So on the portal, this is a screenshot of after you log in, and then you can go on to services, then go to user services, and then click on view additional notices stroke orders. And then once you click on that, the entire table with all the notices or whatever, any report or whatever is there, is opened up like this. And there you can see in the action, under the column action, you have a hyperlink which says view, which is hyperlinked to the document. So you can click on this and you can open up the document. And once you open up the document, you have an option to download it and also to file reply to it by clicking on the relevant hyperlink. And then when you file a reply, you are required to also upload the documents which are required to be uploaded in response to that notice. As you can see, it's available in the drop down and you can select it while giving your reply. Now, before submitting the reply, you will also be required to generate the reply reference number. It is auto generated by the system once you click on this tab here. The other fields here, like reply in respect of notice description, reference number, etc., the period, etc., these are all auto populated. You also have a box in which you can enter your remarks. The limit for uploading the supporting documents is 10 files of 5 MB each. So these you can upload at the time of submitting your reply. Before submitting the reply, you can also preview your reply and then go ahead with submitting it. Now, filing as usual is available with DSC for those for whom it is applicable, and also with EVC. And once you have affixed your DSC or EVC, this is the success message that you receive. Now, once all the notices have been replied to and an order has been finalized, or rather a report, the audit report has been finalized and issued by the department, that also can be viewed by navigating from services, user services, view additional notices, oblique orders. There you can see you have audit report, which is form GST ADT 02, and you also have an option to view it by clicking on the hyperlink here. And after that, you have an option to download it and also reply to it in the report. And then in the reply, in the drop down, you have this option of replying to audit report under 65(6), under section 65(6) in GST ADT 02. Again, you will be required to generate the reply reference number. from the system. And then now the audit report itself contains two tables. The table at the top will give you tax advice, all the details of discrepancy which have been found during the course of audit. Now it is left to the discretion of the taxpayer to what extent he or she is accepting that demand which is found during the audit. So you have an option to choose to accept the entire amount of discrepancy. You can also choose to accept part amount, or you can choose not to accept whatever demand has been raised in case you feel it is not justified. So you will be allowed, or you will be required to enter the amount that you feel is owed by you, which has not been, or which has been short paid or whatever. You also have an option to enter your remarks. Now I am just showing you a part of this table because it's a very long table. So just to give you an idea, how do you make the payment? Whatever amount of discrepancy which was mentioned in the report, which has been admitted by you, will get populated in the table below the top table, where at the end of it, when you scroll down, you have an option to click on the DRC03 link. So that means you are willing to make voluntary payment towards the demand which has been raised in the report. And for that, this link is provided at the end of the table. You can also upload supporting documents and then verify, and then again preview and submit as is the standard process using DSC or EVC. And then your reply would have been filed. Now, once the reply has been filed, the case would be closed if you have paid the full dues. As you can see here, in this particular case, the taxpayer has chosen to pay the full dues amount. So the status gets updated as full dues paid. The case is closed. Now, audit process by itself will be closed after an acknowledgement of acceptance of voluntary payment is issued by the audit officer or the tax department in form DRC04. So that in a nutshell is the entire process on the portal. So just for the benefit of those who joined a little late, I would like to just summarize the today's webinar. First, we discussed what is audit. We defined the audit and how it is happening in the GST. Second, we gave some pointers about what are the important points which need to be remembered by the taxpayers if they have been selected or shortlisted for the audit by the tax department. And then we have shown you the entire navigation on the portal on how to comply with the audit process. So with this, we come to end of today's webinar. Thanks a lot for joining with us. I hope we were able to answer all your queries. Before we close today's session, I would like to tell you that we are on Facebook. We upload all the videos that we make, all the webinars that we conduct on YouTube. We have our own dedicated YouTube channel. You can also connect with us on Twitter. And before I close today's session, I would like to thank all of you again for joining us, and also thank the entire team from GSTN, including our IT support, my colleague Rafi, CEO GSTN, Shri Manish Sinha sir, EVP support, EVP services, Vice President services, Shri Vishal Pal Singh, for giving all the support and guidance for conducting today's webinar. Thanks a lot. Jai Hind.